Hey guys, so I'm here with Jay, managing partner at this amazing location, River Coast in Chicago. And he's going to show us our facility, what really goes on behind the scenes. Let's just go and check it out.
Fantastic. Well, welcome. Well, we're divided between event space and a restaurant. So on the a la carte restaurant side, this is our main bar. It's where the magic happens, but we're going to take a sneak back behind and see where we store everything.
I don't like pushy suppliers or sales pitches. I know a lot of people have decks that they want to show us and percentages and all of this, but I honestly just like casual, comfortable conversations. Let's be real. Let's talk about what actually would fit. Don't present stuff to me that I think is like absolutely ridiculous. Like it doesn't make sense at all. Come knowing what we do and come properly equipped.
Hey guys, this is Sid Patel, your host of Inside the Drinks Business. I'm the CEO of Beverage Trade Network, and I'm here with Rachel Lowe. Rachel's the beverage director for Live Group. I think, Rachel, you'll have to tell me the number of businesses you manage beverage buying for, but I think it's about 260 venues and almost 13 other properties you manage. Let's go on. What is Live Group?
So sports and entertainment is our like bread and butter, basically. Okay. So we have, stadiums, arenas. We're starting to do Formula One more, nice. Cultural centers, conference centers, zoos, and then our restaurant division as well. So we've got kind of a very versatile portfolio. And what we do is we put in a business purpose, why we want to, sell ourselves to the company. And if we do get that bid or we get accepted by them and they want to hire us, we'll go in and we run all the food and beverage for that location.
Got it. So for example, let's say this is, one stadium, and then your office prepares a whole presentation for them, that we're going to take care of end-to-end beverage solutions for that, right? So people who are selling the beverage at the stadium are also your staff?
Yes, yeah. So our staff manages everything. So yeah, they're beverage managers, the DO of the property.
So you take on the entire property from end to end. You manage the beverage operations and food as well.
And food.
Got it. Yeah. And they're looking for what, like profits and?
Oh yeah, profit.
Right. And that's a tender-based model. How do you approach this kind of stadiums? Like is that? There is an RFP and like there are companies like you bidding for that?
Yes, exactly. Business? Yep. So Aramark is another one that, kind of as a competitor.
I'm sure Mark Cuban would have that sort of arm as well, right? So,
yeah. So we bid through the RFP process. Okay. And then, if we successfully score it, then we'll move forward and take care of everything. But it's usually like years out,
All right. So it's like average contract is what, 5 years at least?
That's a good question. I don't know that, but I mean, I know like we proposed an RFP to one property, and we're likely, if we get it, won't take over till 24. So I don't know.
And what kind of movements are you expecting? Like, do you normally get, let's say, how long have you been in this role for?
This role for sports and entertainment, about a year and a half now.
And you see every month 1 or 2 properties coming in?
Not every month, but yeah. It ebbs and flows. Sometimes it's a gradual process.
So every time something new comes, it's entirely planning from start, right?
Generally, but I will say, the thing is, this is kind of an organic movement because we're not a centralized company. So each location really kind of operates independently. So it's what the ownership wants. So if the ownership wants a specific, like something sold or some kind of a special branding or whatever, that's really up to them. And then there are some locations that we just have complete autonomy over. So it really just depends.
Sure. All right. So I think let's go on, exactly the business of managing, multiple restaurants, beverage programs. Can you let us know on how your day looks and what exactly, you're responsible for?
Yeah, sure. Days change. Like there's not one consistent day. right now we're in the office, a hybrid model, Tuesdays through Thursdays. So we're home from home Fridays and Mondays. And it just is a case-by-case basis. So it's like this week I'll pop into River Roast, actually, hang out with Jay, taste some wines for the fall programming.
Okay.
I'll be in the office Wednesday working in our innovations lab with my boss, Brandon, who's flying in. He's still not relocated, but he lives in Seattle, but he'll be moving out, but he pops in every couple of weeks. So I'll be there with him, working on things, innovations lab, working with IMI.
IMI research company? To get
IMI,
data?
No. Well, IMI is basically they control our marketing dollars.
Oh, IMI agency.
Yeah. So, every week is totally different. I sometimes have to go, like, I might have to pop to the United Center to sport, or I might be working at home. We just got a property in Minneapolis, a performing arts property, so I'm going to be working on the wine program for that.
So great. What is this, Jason? A cooler room or?
Yeah, so we keep all our beverage back here.
Okay.
We've got 2 coolers, liquor room. This beer package, wine, it's not packed yet, but we'll get our orders in. Just coming off the weekend, floor to ceiling.
So sorry, 1 second. Packaged wine, meaning?
Packaged beer and packaged wine.
Part of the pre-sale of a package.
Exactly. It's not available on
It's
the à la carte
allocated.
menu.
It's allocated, right?
Exactly.
Understood. Got it. Good to know.
Yeah.
You have a separate room for that. Nice. I thought it would be from the inventory sheet. It's not physically separate.
It still is.
Okay.
But to avoid confusion,
Understood. So you don't run out of anything and
we'll pack this one,
put it aside.
and then it keeps our draft beer, obviously,
Nice.
and then all the wines for the restaurant are on this side.
Yep.
So it avoids confusion.
Yep.
People aren't.
All the
Middle
wines
of the
for the
night.
restaurants are here.
All the white wines,
White wines.
sparkling are on this
And
side.
sparkling.
Yeah.
I think IMI is one of the agencies that you would usually want to work with if you want to pitch national chains, right?
Yep.
And why is that? Because it's just they bring what kind of convenience to you guys?
They act as the buffer between suppliers and buyers. So, they kind of translate the information, bring it to us, present it. So we're not just being like onslaught of suppliers, just all left, right, and center. They kind of funnel it into one kind of, channel so that we're able to organize things, figure out who to meet with when. Yeah.
So they already
they're the
know your
conversation.
sort of requirements, what are you looking for, and that's how they present, and they only present those brands which are sort of a good fit for you guys?
Well, they present to us anything, but
Okay.
then we determine, instead of to the supplier directly, we determine if we want to have a meeting or not.
Got it.
So he's the buffer.
Understood.
Yeah.
And there is no exclusivity, right? Like it's not like you only have to go through them, or you can do direct deals.
No.
And you also said you're here for tasting. So how do you work? What is your relationship with the local beverage directors? How much they are doing their own buying decisions, and how much you're getting involved?
Like 50-50.
Okay.
I mean, Ravinia is our property, and I always write the opening wine program for that. Here, Jay does he's very knowledgeable about wine, so I just kind of pop in when I can do education.
So it's like Jay would say, hey Rachel, when you come, we'll just go through a few wines because I want your opinion. Is that how it is?
Well, we're meeting with a distribution company
Okay.
on Wednesday, so they're bringing samples. We're going to taste wines that they want to pitch for us.
Got it.
But we just got the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, for example, and I wrote the opening program for that, which took me some time, and then I passed it off to the beverage manager, and she'll refer to me for education and updating, but other than that, I'm leaving it to her.
Okay.
Because I can't be that hands-on with everything, I just don't have enough time for it.
Got it.
Yeah.
What kind of reports, let's say, each unit head have to give you, and what kind of reports you have to give to your boss? Like, what is Jay reporting to you on your beverage?
I'm not actually on their calls. He reports to his DO, and if there's any kind of issue with beverage, then we would be flagged. We're right now putting together a system, which is a map that has all of our properties on it because it's difficult to know.
Yeah.
And then you can zoom in on that and find data on all of those properties.
Okay.
And so now we're doing a comparison, and because my team is fairly new, except for myself, we're trying to figure out, what properties are excelling and which ones are not, and which ones might need support. So from there, we'll kind of reach out where it's needed.
Got it.
Yeah.
I think give us a little context about what's different between your role and just a person who has one restaurant, you know,
Sure.
what kind of things literally is just people don't know about that goes in your world?
Well, I mean, it all started, I had to learn what RFP process was, which is request for proposal.
So you guys put RFP, right? That's the
We
thing.
do.
Okay.
So yearly we update the core mandate program. So that's what we do as the National Director of Beverage IM, and then Brandon, my boss, is the Vice President of Beverage. So we collectively will put, well, IMI will put that the RFP process has been opened, and people will submit Excel sheets with what product they want to propose for us to carry. And that usually starts in January, February. And we close the process in February. And then we have till around June to really decide what we want to put on the core program.
Okay.
But it goes live in our fiscal year, which is October 1.
Wow. So like January, February, you know, the request of product is usually for the October.
Yep. Yeah, so we finally, like I released the updated core program in June. It just went live. And we're going to sit down and start all over in January. So it's like...
And this RFPs are usually a private process? Or is it people can find it on the group's website somewhere?
You have to go through IMI. So it has to be like a specific link that you submit things. It's a formal like process. So it's not... But people know to go to IMI now.
Yeah,
because,
yeah. I believe it must be IMI's clients as well who would get first priority, right?
Yes, and they know everyone. So yeah, they're great like that.
Got it. So it's mainly RFP for your corporate buys, till what I'm understanding.
Yeah.
Then what is the process? Like, how do you evaluate? What goes in that process?
So,
let's say you
I
got
mean,
20.
we're evaluating, we get tons of samples.
Okay.
So, you know, some we're just immediately like, it's not going to be distributed nationally.
So,
it's not going to
support, right? So let's say RFP documentation comes in.
Yeah.
So first is documentation, right?
Right. We have this giant Excel sheet for beer, liquor,
What do
wine.
you do in that? Like, what do you look for?
Well, we look for national average pricing to see
understood.
national distribution, product availability. Like, if they're submitting an RFP for us, they should know that we need giant amounts of product availability nationally. Who they're sold through. I mean, if
distributors at each point. Okay.
It's helpful if we have larger distribution nationally, like Southern or Breakthrough.
So you prefer to work with one, obviously, because
it's easier for one operators on the grounds, right?
Yep.
And they often carry a lot of the products that we carry. So, you know, we have to balance the core with very recognizable quality beverage with stuff that's a little lesser known. But you know, it's a fine line. Like, you want a lot of our stadium attendees and people like that really want label recognition.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's what they're comfortable with.
So that's the process of data, and then you take. I'm just trying to think, and then the next process is sample request, sample request, sample request.
They'll already have submitted.
So
there'll
so
be
like
an onslaught. Yeah, they put it in. They've already sent it to us. And so we have to go through and taste the product, look at it. So how's the branding? How's the availability? How's the national average pricing?
That's like that tasting happening, actual event that happens behind it for your...
Just the beverage team just sits and tastes.
In the office, basically.
Yeah. I mean, we have a new bar. It's the Innovations Lab that we're going to start doing tastings in. But last year, or this year, I guess, in January, we were tasting in the office.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty
And
casual.
then what happens? Like, let's say you liked a couple. What's the close after that?
So we start building the core. And a lot of times the core transfers over from one year to the next. We have, like, you know, solid fundamental things that need to be on there, like, you know, certain beers, certain wines. And then from there, we can pepper and suggest operators on a local level, they might want local beer, things like that. So there's got to be flexibility for supporting on a local level too.
Understood. I just want to know the process of, for example, let's say there is Yellowtail Chardonnay, and now maybe Jacobs Creek Chardonnay is giving a better deal, right? So how does that change happen?
That's when you just make the decision as the buyer and you swap it out, because we have like an Excel sheet that we send out to the field when the core is updated and released. So it's basically just swapping it out, providing who sells it,
so
what the national
that also
average
means
price
that you know, at all times you're open and listening still to the market if there's any better deal than the current set.
Well, deals or trends. We in addition to Brandon, we have Scott, who is our director of beverage analyst, and so he's constantly looking at trends and going to a local level, seeing what's selling where. So he's really a great resource for that kind of thing. And like I said, this year, I mean, it's going to take a few months to start seeing what's working and what's not, because we're starting with arenas, and then we go to different kinds of games that are seasonal.
Understood. I think with stadiums especially, it's a lot of seasonality plus type of the game decides the drink as well, right? Like if it's
I mean, beer centric, wine centric, more often beer and liquor, but wine does really well. And we also have concessions. We have the main concourse, but then we also have the premium suites and locations. That's where like a lot of our higher end reserve wines are featured.
Got it.
And so, there's a big difference. But I will say that once the RFP process is done, once you've written the core menu, once it's released, as people receive it in the field, operators do file exception requests to items that don't make sense for their property. So even though we request that all these items live in the building somewhere, sometimes it doesn't work. So, they'll submit exception requests to us. And
that we don't want this like that.
Yeah, we can't justify carrying this. Yeah,
it's a misfit for us. So we will say no for our store.
Right, or if it's a local sponsorship or a relationship that the owner has, stuff like that happens.
What about brand performance? How are you measuring your brand performance of your program?
Data.
What do you look for? Top line and profit?
What's selling? We were looking at like eliminating our Pinot Grigio because we're like, who drinks Pinot Grigio anymore? And we
Seriously?
looked, and it sells really well still. So there's still a core Pinot Grigio in there, but we usually have we have 3 levels of Chardonnay, 3 levels of Pinot Noir, and 3 levels of Cabernet, for example, and what makes sense where is where the items will be placed.
Okay. Great growth hacks or tips you have to increase top line beverage sales?
Yeah, first of all, we're going to look at what is selling. So pick from the top, 20% of what's selling.
Okay.
Activations and tastings, like education, I think is really important.
All right. That means hand selling, sommeliers are just...
or whatever makes sense at each property. We're really working towards education, like improving
for your staff.
For our staff.
All right.
And then brand recognition, margin, we want to, we need to make money. But,
How do you do education, overall? What kind of things do you do right now?
Well, right. So it's, there's on a national level, we have our kind of breakdown of, service standards for bartenders, wine service, beer service, etc. But, sometimes we'll need to fly in and educate the staff at an opening. The CSO, or Chicago Symphony Orchestra, is going to open pretty soon, and I'll be there myself educating everyone on the wine list that I wrote. So it really is on a case-by-case basis, where we need to be when.
What about sales education? Do you also teach them how to sell, how to upsell, how to approach a customer, or it's more of a just knowledge based?
Knowledge, where it makes sense, sure. How to sell, absolutely, and upsell. And that's a really big, I think, part of our restaurant division, because each is so individual, and that's where you can get really close and personalize
What are
things.
your tips and pointers for all the sommeliers out there? Any ideas you can give on that this really works every time I ask this way for a glass of wine?
To upsell or
even the first sale,
Yeah. Well, what I say is get to that table right away. Don't let them sit. Yeah. Offer drinks right away. Maybe make a suggestion. I have this really great new champagne we have poured by the glass. Would you have any interest in that? Or, just any kind of suggestion, or this would work really great with this food item that you're looking at, or things like that.
What is your greeting? How do you?
When I was working the floor. Good evening.
I'm Rachel.
I'm Rachel. I'd be like, would you like any assistance with the wine list?
Got it.
Because that would be the last time I was on the floor was working at Spiaggia.
Got it.
And so it was kind of formal dining.
Yeah.
Go up. We had a big wine program. And then just guide them, read the guest. I think that's really, really important too.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
What about upsell? At what time usually we would suggest sommeliers to go out there, and how to approach that?
Yeah, again, read the table. You don't want to be immediately go to the really expensive bottle. You want to engage with a guest and kind of feel them out, understand what their palate is like, what they're comfortable with, what they usually drink. And that'll kind of give you an idea as to what price point they're comfortable with and what style wine.
Let me throw in a couple of maybe scenarios
Yeah.
just for the fun, and let's say you know, you are this amazing top salesperson, right? You're going to figure out a way to upsell me the second glass.
Yeah.
You know what? We're doing fine.
Yeah, so please let me know if if you change your mind. But I think what's really important is getting to a guest when like they have just a little bit left in their glass, and the timing is like if they're sitting there with an empty glass and they're halfway through their dinner, they might be like, oh, well, you lost your chance. You know, like you need to be on top of everything that's out there.
Where I was going with that is, for example, I ordered a $14 Pinot Noir glass.
Yeah.
And maybe I want just $8 the next one.
Yeah.
You know, how do you read that kind of customer?
Usually they just order themselves.
They just order themselves. All right, cool. I mean, you know that maybe this person already went a little high, right?
Yeah.
On the first one. So.
Right. So.
And next one is more like just because it's a group setting, you want to go a little slow.
That's fair. That's fair.
Let's go back on, you know, profitability part. Like give us some stuff where maybe you played with the deco, or you have some tips with the beverage menu, maybe even the placement of the program, you know, where you did some things without changing anything and profits went up.
Well, we've talked a lot about signage, and again, that's more dealt with on a local level. But the more we see different properties, how they represent their beverage, the more you understand like what moves and what doesn't. So like. You know, signage can be very confusing, and then if you make it more like in order from like, okay, this is a beer selling location. Let's do the beers here. Let's lay out the local beers, and then, you know, kind of progress from there. Like it all makes a lot of sense when you like localize it based on what is trending there specifically.
Got it. So you first have to define a personality of that location, and then sort of reverse engineer the process.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the head office, right? What are your challenges in a corporate buyer role, you know, personally, like literally, you know, what are your pain points and what do you do to overcome that?
Well, I mean, a big one for me was that I came from operations. So I'm not like on the floor. I'm not at these locations because obviously there's so many of them. So I feel like a little bit removed from the field. You know, you're kind of isolated at the home office. And you know, all these operators, a lot of them have been working at these locations for a very long time. You know, they might not receive a new core right, exactly. They might not. And some people, you know, but for a long time, compliance has been an issue. So we have that exception request that I referred to earlier, but, you know, you don't know if a property just didn't submit one and is still doing what they want to. True. So that's a hurdle that we're really the new team is looking to address. And I mean, we don't want to come in hot and like
it's just like head office versus local office, right?
Exactly.
And what do you do to win their hearts and create rapport?
We are starting to have conversations like one-on-one with operators, and you know, and just let them know that we're there to support them. We're not like their enemies. But you know, try and get them to understand that the reason we work nationally with these suppliers and these brands is because that, you know, that support from our relationships with these suppliers, that supports the national average pricing, like allows it, that actually helps with the margin.
I mean, it's a macro net, it's a win. You know, maybe at one location they may see it as a loss, but overall for you, it's a whole thing. It's
really helping our entire company.
You know, your great friend is a sommelier and finally gets in a role of, let's say, Olive Garden national buyer or something. What kind of, you know, coffee conversation you would have as a tip, you know, you would advise someone to, you know, start this corporate buying job in the first 3 months, like how to navigate this?
Try and remember every single supplier that you meet. Like I kind of went in right at the RFP process, and that's like a barrage of just meeting with suppliers, tasting with people. Like it's overwhelming, but you don't know how important these relationships are until you like start seeing the same people everywhere and know who is the national, you know, who runs national accounts.
Understood.
And so I think relationships with is huge.
Cool. A relationship with the suppliers, the likability factor, right? You know, what kind of things, what makes you like a supplier apart from everything on the numbers and the balance sheets, right? The behavioral skills.
I don't like pushy suppliers or sales pitches. I know a lot of people have decks that they want to show us and, you know, percentages and all of this, but I honestly just like casual, comfortable conversations. Let's be real. Let's talk about what actually would fit. Don't present stuff to me that I think is like absolutely ridiculous. Like it doesn't make sense at all, you know. Come knowing what we do and come properly equipped, but also cool.
And what pisses you off? Like what's a strict no? Do not do that in a meeting.
Somebody who is really pushy, really like annoyed by how little their product sold one year and lets it show rather than trying to make something like, let's work on this to find,
ego or patience. Like,
yeah.
How did you just sell this much?
Yeah, entitlement. That is like absolutely a no for me.
And that comes because they have that brand power, you believe? Like it's just because you need that brand now.
No brand has that much power to like, if they're horrible people, like no.
So you still think that you have the full power to say no to even the best wine?
If we need to, if like somebody's just
because
absolutely atrocious to work with, like,
Understood. Understood.
Yeah.
Do you believe that still this is a retail-driven market?
Yes. Yeah.
Meaning today you decide that this is a category I want to, 10 restaurant chain groups, let's say, decides that, okay, let's forget about Pinot Grigio, buy the glass white, now let's bring Chardonnay again. And it can happen, you think?
Yeah, we've seen that, like, the trends influence, like Pinot Noir came into vogue, Merlot died off, like, things are constantly trending. But there are, Sauvignon Blanc, I think, is doing better than Chardonnay right now. But I feel like that's always, like, kind of moving around, yeah.
Where are the opportunities for suppliers? Where do you see things moving? For other restaurants, what are some tips you would give with kind of beverage products to keep an eye on in 2023?
RTD is still, like, a huge growing category. Canned wine is still a huge growing category. We take appointments with, or conversations with basically anybody who's interested in trying to pitch us. But nice. We're cool with but a lot of people don't realize like the scale that we do and what that requires.
In the supplier meeting, what kind of things they present? I just want to go a little bit deeper in the material part of it. What are those meetings look like?
Usually 30 minutes. We will meet in wherever we're meeting. Generally, people will come in, they bring samples of what they're selling. They bring a deck and present it. So they're presenting what they did with us last year, what they're hoping to do with us the coming year, any new product that they've created, such as like RTDs. Those are, like spirit companies are constantly throwing out new RTDs. They again, statistics, they'll definitely throw those out. And then you either choose to taste right then and there or like hold on to the samples and taste later. And that's really it. There's a lot of like dining out and things like that
relationship building, basically.
Relationship building,
What about advertising plan? Do they share that sort of thing? Like, okay, we're going to spend this much money. It will help you drive more.
They don't share what kind of money they would, but like activation ideas are constantly being, like, oh, Aperol Spritz cart. We can do this in any location, or we can pour this sample here and, sell this for you. Like, we can be here helping like move this product. So that's always part of that meeting too.
Give us one or two examples where suppliers really the supplier really helped you solve the problem, and really supported.
Yeah, with the supply chain issues, there's experiences where you run out of a certain product. Great supplier that I worked with recently was, dealing with that same issue. Didn't realize that this location was going to work with the same wine again this year. She thought it was a one-off from last year. And she was really doing her best to like swap out the product because she was thinking it was probably around 100 plus cases of this wine. And she offered the same, she offered a wine that was a little even higher quality for the same price. Yeah, exactly.
And did a swap, because you were out of stock.
Right, and that's not our problem. So, she kind of took that hit for us instead.
Yeah, she understands how important that slot is.
Yes.
Once it's gone, right?
It's gone, yeah.